Welcome back to What the Fuck is Going On. Today is Thursday, December 14th. My name is Rob McGreevy. This is Brian McShane.
Hello, hello.
We have a great show for you today. We're going to be going into Israel, the Hunter Biden indictments, a House impeachment inquiry, and more. Let's get into it. Okay, very quick at the top, some headlines. Congress passed an $886 billion defense budget that President Biden is expected to sign later today. Wall Street exploded yesterday after the Fed announced rates would remain at their current rate and signaled future cuts. And a New York State appeals court rejected former President Trump's appeal to overturn his limited gag order in his civil fraud case. All right, so we're just going to get right into it. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Good. So the main couple things we're going to cover today are Israel, the Hunter Biden indictments, and we might get a little bit into Zelenskyy at the end and maybe potentially talk about some of the hearings and the backlash from the Ivy League professors that are unable to condemn genocide, apparently.
I mean, everybody's got to take a stance. So I guess they're taking theirs.
That's it, man. Stand for something or fall for everything.
Yes, sir.
But immediately we will get into Israel. On Friday, the UN Security Council held an emergency meeting to vote on a non-binding resolution to call for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Of the 15 members of the Security Council, 13 voted yes to the ceasefire. The U.S. was the only one that vetoed it, and the U.K. abstained. As a member of the UN Security Council, is 15 members. 5 of them are permanent. I believe it's U.S., France, U.K., China, and I'm blanking on that last one. But
for abstaining?
No. Just so the UN Security Council is a 15-member body of the entire General Assembly, and the way it works is there are 10 of the 15 get voted on, I think, every 2 years or every 5 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then 5 are permanent. It's the U.S., the U.K., France, I think Germany and China.
Yeah.
Those 5 permanent members each get a veto that it's like, it doesn't matter what the other 14 say. If one of them vetoes it, it doesn't pass, which is what happened here. The U.S. vetoed the resolution. Just for the record, the UN is somewhat of a symbolic agency. Like, they call these resolutions non-binding because there would be, even if the U.S. did vote yes,
right,
there's no consequences for Israel if they say, okay, well, we're not listening to that.
Yeah.
But it is all just sort of to show the U.S. is still strongly supporting Israel as sort of the public support for their current war in Gaza fades, because then after that Security Council resolution, the General Assembly, so the body made up of, I think there's 193 member states in the UN, the entire, every country in the world voted very similarly languaged non-binding resolution on the ceasefire. For that, 153 voted yes, ceasefire. 23, including Germany and the UK, abstained, and only 10 voted to reject the ceasefire. Those 10 were the US, Israel, Austria, the Czech Republic, Guatemala, Liberia, Micronesia, Papua New Guinea, Paraguay, and Nauru.
Interesting.
So the US is very, very interestingly positioned on the world stage now at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it is a change from... They last voted on it October 27th.
Yeah, so they were voting on a quote-unquote humanitarian pause, a little different from a ceasefire in terms of the way the world is viewing those, because they did actually end up getting that little pause despite the fact that vote didn't pass.
Right.
I think Israel did allow for some aid to enter Gaza, and then just immediately started, 4 days later, blowing it up again. I wanted to read out a quote from the U.S.'s ambassador to the UN.
Robert A. Wood.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not him.
No?
From a different ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Okay,
That is the U.S.'s ambassador, too. Do you have a quote from him?
I do, yeah.
You read that one, and I'll read Greenfield's.
So Robert A. Wood said they voted against an imbalanced resolution that was...
Hold on. Speaking in the mic?
Can you hear me? Hello?
No. Oh, yeah, okay, you're good. I'm sorry.
So Robert A. Wood was quoted with saying that they voted against an imbalanced resolution that was divorced from reality, that would not move the needle forward on the ground in any concrete way.
Okay.
So yes, again, that was Robert A. Wood, the U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the UN.
Right. So their position is essentially, and this is what Linda Thomas Greenfield said, that although the United States agreed with some aspects of the latest resolution, she said, quote, "We agree that the humanitarian situation is dire, that it requires urgent and sustained attention." Okay, that's the only quote I have. But she says it fails to condemn the Hamas attack on October 7th,
right,
in which at least 1,200 people were killed in Israel. She said, quote, why is that so hard? So I personally don't understand. Like, why do we need that language to also ask for ceasefire?
Right, to condemn Hamas.
Yeah, I don't understand how the two are linked. But,
right.
And then this is what UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said about the situation. Guterres has been sort of uncharacteristically calling for a ceasefire from the beginning. Uncharacteristically, not of him personally, but just of the leader of the UN, like, not changing position at all, and just being like, no, we need a ceasefire, like, not going along with sort of the global initial response. He said, quote, "There is a high risk of the total collapse of the humanitarian support system in Gaza, which will have devastating consequences. We anticipate that it will result in the complete breakdown of public order and increased pressure for mass displacement into Egypt." So, and like that quote I just read before from Thomas Greenfield says that she agrees that the humanitarian situation is dire and that it requires urgent and sustained attention. So the U.S.'s position on rejecting the ceasefire is not that it's not needed.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, okay, but we also just want you to condemn Hamas, which is like, I don't know. Before those professors, or those college presidents testified, I would have been like, yes, everybody condemns Hamas. It's like pretty standard stuff. And even, to be fair to them, they might too, and just were not willing to be held hostage by members of Congress in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, they also want the verbiage of them saying that Israel has the right to defend itself, which I guess isn't in that. But that's another thing that Robert Wood said, along with the that other mention of not condemning Hamas. They also want the verbiage in there saying that Israel has the right to defend itself. I mean, I don't know why that needs to be said.
Yeah.
I think every country has the right to defend itself from terroristic attacks. But yeah, I don't know why verbiage has, it's such a dire need to say certain words when it comes down to just not killing people.
Yeah, and it's a weird line in the sand to draw for the U.S., who, are kind of, this is a very public way for them to support Israel.
Right.
But at the same time, Biden, here, we'll play a clip from Biden here of him telling, sort of warning Israel that they're losing support on the world stage.
Right.
I think that we have made it clear to the Israelis, and they're aware, that the safety of innocent Palestinians is still of great concern. And so the actions they're taking must be consistent with attempting to do everything possible to prevent innocent Palestinian civilians from being hurt, murdered, killed, lost, etc.
So that was Biden warning Israel that they're losing support on the world stage. I know Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with the Israel's war cabinet member / former Prime Minister Benny Gantz, and along with discussing the ongoing efforts to facilitate return of hostages and increasing levels of humanitarian assistance, Blinken also stressed the urgent need for affirmative steps to de-escalate tensions in the West Bank, so not Gaza, because also people kind of, this is one of my issues with the whole, you have to support Israel indiscriminately, no matter what. It's like, okay, Hamas attacked them from Gaza. What is that? There's still violence in the West Bank.
Right.
And a lot of that is propagated by Israeli settlers who, like, you're not supposed to say settlers anymore. Like, Elon Musk said you could get kicked off Twitter for talking about settlers. But
Really?
yeah.
Wow, I didn't see that.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Justice Department, Joe Biden's Justice Department, is taking away Israelis' visas to America if they're getting caught in this settler violence. So it's a very real thing that, like, this pressure from Israel, from organizations like the ADL, are trying to put on Americans to not even be able to talk about this stuff. Hey, if you mention West Bank settlers, you're anti-Semitic. It's like, well, they're, like, taking people's homes away from them and killing them indiscriminately. So there can be, nuance to this. Yes, of course, Hamas is bad. Also, don't kill people in the West Bank. Like, those things should be able to be said.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, and Blinken emphasized that the United States remains committed to advancing tangible steps towards the realization of a Palestinian state. A couple other things before I wanted to ask you about a quote I think you saw from, not a quote, but something about Hamas and their support from Israel.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, just Israel is now flooding the tunnels beneath Gaza with seawater.
Wild.
Which I am pro that. That seems like it's way better than just bombing the strip indiscriminately, which they've also been doing.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like, for lack of better words, no pun intended, but a streamlined way to
there you go.
just get it out. Rather than, death from above, which is killing everybody, all the innocent lives, why not just literally streamline it through the pipe?
From the river to the sea, we'll bring the sea to you, bitch.
Yeah, there you go.
And then also, I think today they announced they took 70 prisoners from a hospital. And again, I talked about this when I was covering the Ukraine war a little bit at the onset. We can do our best to relay the information that comes from quote unquote official sources. It is a war. Warfare in the 21st century is as much of a battle of information as it is anything else.
Correct.
A lot of the reason Hamas and Palestine even are kind of still in it, quote unquote, so to speak, is because they have a lot of public support. As we can see, the majority of the world is calling for a ceasefire.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
So that being said, we're doing the best to relay the information we have. Israel has a, what's the word? Like, it's in their benefit to say, hey, we captured these 70 guys. We didn't kill them.
Right.
We took these people from a hospital. But that is what they're reporting. That happened today. So 70 Hamas fighters arrested at, I don't have the exact hospital. I'll put it in the post-production. I'll put it on the screen. Yeah, and so then I wanted to ask you about the stuff you saw from Hamas being potentially funded by Israel, which I think there is some legitimacy to that.
So, I mean, I was just checking it out earlier, and I heard it in a podcast I was listening to. I didn't really get to look up the full backing to it, but it was just mentioned that there is a theory that Israel has been funding Hamas for the past 7 years, right? So,
right.
And, obviously the first question would be why?
Mm-hmm.
Why would they be funding their direct opposition?
To delegitimize the possibility for a two-state solution.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah. And, I mean, it opens up a lot of doors of different theories there, but, I mean, at the end of the day, I encourage everybody to, this is what we talk about. It's just critical thinking, looking up your own information. I would encourage people to look that up and, form their own ideas as to understanding why Israel would be doing that.
Yeah.
And then what the potential outcome would be.
And specifically, when we talk about Israel, you don't want people to go to equate, okay, Israel equals all Jews equals if I don't like Israel, I don't like any Jews. Mm-hmm. That's like obviously terrible.
Right.
So like even a step further, it's like not even the state of Israel, but specifically Benjamin Netanyahu's government within Israel has been propping up Hamas. This is from like communications between Netanyahu and his advisors that have been either subpoenaed or obtained illegally through stuff like WikiLeaks. He basically tried to empower Hamas when Israel pulled out of Gaza in like 2005. The plan there was to let it fall apart,
right?
Let it fall into Hamas's hands, let Hamas become more extreme, literally funding them to disabuse Israelis of the notion that they can live in peace with the Palestinian state. That's kind of the plan, to say, okay, it's Israel by itself or it's nothing. Look how violent and extreme these people are. The Democratic National Convention, the Democratic Party in America, did a very similar thing in 2016 and possibly long before that in purposely funding extreme right-wing candidates.
Right.
Because they were like, these people are so fucking crazy that once they're the nominee, we're going to obviously get the votes from people. And look how that turned out. Donald Trump fucking won. So
There you go.
There are some rumors floating around that, and more than rumors actually, like pretty substantiated claims that Netanyahu's government in Israel had advanced warning that this attack was coming up to a year in advance.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah, and so I think it's maybe extreme to say that they knew it was going to happen and let it happen, but I don't think it's extreme to say that Netanyahu, who was maybe the most controversial and embattled prime minister in the country's history, who's facing multiple corruption lawsuits, who could have been kicked out of office, I don't think it's crazy to say it was to his benefit,
right,
that attack happened and the response to it, what it's been.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, that is a theory, is that, obviously if they actually were funding Hamas for the past 7 years, and if they did potentially know up to a year in advance that this attack was going to happen, it would be hard to not believe that this would just be an opportunity for them to eradicate their opposition.
Yeah. They have public support now, and it's obviously waning as videos come out of just, 70% children and women dying in Gaza. Like 12,000 plus is the number right now, and I'm sure that's going to go up. They're losing public support, but at the onset they had it. The whole world was like, you can't let that happen. Israel has a right to defend itself, which it does. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the argument is, what is defending yourself?
I mean, I think not Netanyahu. He was quoted in saying, since it was a holy day that they were attacked, I think he was quoted in saying that they attacked us. And I'm going to butcher this quote, but it was loosely stating, we are not going to stop until this is over. They declared war on us. There is no end to this until...
Yeah, they're going to eradicate Hamas, is what they said, which, again, that's a pretty, broad statement. I mean, is it, Hamas is an organization. They're also... It's the same issue that America has in, eradicating ISIS. It's like, you can kill every single one of them. They're going to, crop up again. Just by nature of your... you have to every bomb you drop, you have to think, I have to kill more terrorists than the reaction to it is going to create. And I don't think that's what's happening. I think with every Hamas insurgent that Israel kills, they're also killing 10 civilians. That's going to create fucking 55 jihadis. Think about those people's brothers and fathers and sisters and mothers and sons.
Their bloodline is just now.
Yeah. I don't think it's a sustainable measure. But it does seem like Netanyahu's pretty hyper-focused on just, okay, we're going to fucking eliminate it. And also, this is something that the U.S. and Netanyahu disagree on, is eventually, who knows when, the bombing is going to have to stop, and somebody is going to have to run Gaza. Netanyahu says it should be Israel. The U.S. is like, you can't just bomb a place and then say we're taking it. That's exactly what Russia, or that's at least what they say Russia is doing to Ukraine. So we can't complain about Russia taking Crimea, let it have it, but then also let Israel do the same thing to Gaza. It's just, it's not a good look. So I don't know. It's obviously a horrific situation. I think, and the way it's spread into global culture, obviously we saw, Dave Portnoy was talking yesterday about, he said he's never going to hire a Harvard graduate again until the professor, President Gay, steps down.
Yeah.
You will not hire anyone from Harvard, UPenn, or MIT until the school's deans step down. Has anyone from these schools applied to work with you?
Yeah, well, first of all, we already have Harvard grads, so they're grandfathered in. But in the Penn dean, President McGill, she stepped down. Yeah, a lot of people reached out, but I think it's not only me. I think a lot of leaders have to do it. It was disgusting what those deans and presidents did under oath It makes no sense to me. I don't know how, if you can't condemn genocide, I don't care whether we're talking Jews, Muslims, any group of people, then you don't deserve to be, in a position of power. You got to get out.
What about free speech? Does that come into this?
Yeah, listen, is Hitler allowed to say, I want to kill the Jews, I want to kill the Jews, I want to kill the Jews, right up till he kills the Jews? I would say no. That's what they're saying you can do in this country. There's a difference between free speech and hate speech, and when you're endangering people and causing harm, I think you got to put a stop to it. It's called common sense.
We might as well just very briefly get into that, and I'm not gonna cover it extensively, but there was a few of the Ivy League schools presidents were on Capitol Hill to testify about anti-Semitism on their campuses.
Mm-hmm.
I know UPenn's president, Liz McGill, stepped down as a result of her testimony.
But she still allowed all of the rights that she had before. It's just like
She's
in
not
name
president
only,
anymore?
I believe. Yeah, she still has all the power that she had before. I could be wrong, but I was reading that she still has basically everything that she was entitled to before. It's just not position.
Interesting. Well, good for her. I'm going to be a rare person that this is probably the first time and hopefully last time I ever agree with Ivy League presidents. But watching the testimony, and here, I'll play a clip right here.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
Yes
speech
or no?
becomes if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes.
That was New York Representative Elise Stefanik grilling the presidents of these universities for not being able to denounce calls for anti-Semitism as hate speech. I have a little bit of an issue with this because I think the term hate speech has been used as a way to eliminate free speech. Mm-hmm. I'm a person that thinks that even if you shout fire in a crowded movie theater and someone trips and falls and hurts themselves, like, that's not your fault still. Like, the onus has to be on people who are receiving the information. We can't coddle people and be like, you're not allowed to hear any of this. Like, you can incite violence by saying this. It's like the Douglas Mackey guy we talked about last week who got 7 months in prison for making a meme that said you can text vote to 51866 to vote for Hillary.
Right.
If you believe that, you're a fucking idiot.
Right.
The onus should be on you. Let's make those people smarter. So, like, if someone saying, hey, we should kill the Jews inspires you to kill the Jews, the problem wasn't them saying that. The problem was you, that
That's
you'd
your
like to
problem.
kill the Jews.
Yeah.
Like, that is your... We need to fix that issue, not tell people that they're not allowed to say what they say, because almost always the bad guy is the one telling you not to say something.
Right.
Almost always throughout history, the people trying to limit and censor speech are the ones that are the bad guys. So while I don't... a lot of people are saying... Even Rogan, I was watching Protect Our Parks yesterday. It's like Joe Rogan and Mark Normand, Ari Shaffir, Shane Gillis. Mm. They were like, I can't believe how easy it is to denounce this and how they didn't do it. It's like, it's about principle. Yeah. Someone is a Republican, at least Stefanik, is standing there like screaming at you, like, why can't you denounce this? Like, I would almost not do it just out of defiance.
Right.
Like, I'm not a puppet. You can't pull my string and say, I denounce anti-Semitism. Like, that's not how it works when you're in a position of power like that. You have to be able to have some autonomy over your own words and actions. So, and to be fair to, I forget her first name, but President Gay, never going to forget her last name. She was like, kind of like, okay, well, in context, I could see how that would be a call for genocide. I could see how that would be hate speech. And because Stefanek was trying to say, does this not violate the terms of your school's policies on hate speech? And President Gay was just like being very measured, like in context, blah, 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 which is like, I don't know. I could be wrong about this. I know a lot of my friends think I'm wrong about this, but I just don't like the way the tide is turning in terms of like Elon Musk, who bought Twitter to be a quote free speech bastion, is saying you can't say from the river to the sea. That's an implicit call for genocide. It's the same thing for COVID, where it was like, okay, that's a call for genocide. A lot of people are saying it's not, though. Like, ask a Palestinian what they actually mean by saying that. Maybe some of them will say we want to kill all the Jews.
Right.
A lot of them will just say, no, we just want our freedom. And why do you get to decide what they mean by that?
But
that's not fair to me.
Is that not the battle cry basically for Hamas? Aren't they using
It's in their charter.
Yeah.
It's also in the Likud party's charter, which is Netanyahu's party.
Okay.
To say that Israel will be a state from the river to the sea. It's a completely... It's like, okay, yeah, that's in Hamas's charter. You know what else Hamas likes? Oxygen and water. Should we ban those? It's like, just because these terrorists use these words,
right.
now that's everybody that uses these words as terrorists. That's not how it works. Again, I'm well aware that I'm in the minority on this stuff, but it's the same thing to me like COVID. During COVID, everyone said, trust the science, listen to your doctors. Okay, well, there's two doctors saying two different things. This one is saying the vaccine is going to kill me. This one's saying I'm going to die if I don't get it. They're both doctors.
Right.
So it's like, I've heard plenty of Jews. There's Jews for Palestine. There's Jews for peace. There's a ton of, everyone's like, you listen to your Jewish brothers and sisters. I'm like, okay, well, I have Jews over here telling me that, you know, their right to defend themselves means they can bomb Palestine indiscriminately. I have Jews over here who are telling me that, like, what's happening in Palestine is horrible, that they don't support their government, that, you know, Israel is way overstepping their boundaries. So it's like, as a Gentile, who do I listen to? I'm ignoring one of the Jews here. So it's the same thing. It's like, yes, some people are saying from the river to the sea, and they mean I want all Jews in Israel to die.
Right.
Some of them are saying it because they have been oppressed historically for 70, 100, 200, 500, 800 years as a Palestinian people, and that's their call for freedom. And I've heard people say, okay, from the river to the sea doesn't mean kill all the Jews. It means let Palestinians have our homeland. And yes, also Hamas is saying there will not be any Jews in Jerusalem, in the Levant. We will kill them all.
Right.
That's obvious, though. Like, when someone says kill all the Jews, I guess that is basically why people are upset at the presidents, because it's the obvious thing. It's just saying, hey, kill all the Jews. Can you say that? And the presidents are like, I don't know, maybe.
Right.
It's like, I get being mad at that, but to me, it seems to me like they're defending the principle rather than, like, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, from what you're saying before, though, like the blanket state, like people are taking it as a blanket statement. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the world right now is the divisiveness of just you're saying one thing and I'm hearing one blanket statement.
And there's no nuance.
There's no conversation.
It's
just, oh, wow, you're hardlined on one side while I'm on the other, so fuck you.
Well, they plug it into the machine. It's like, that word means this thing.
Right.
That's what the news told me to think. And yes, okay, so you want to kill all the Jews. No. I just want Palestinians to be free. You're anti-Semitic. No. That's not what I said.
Right.
But that's what the news is saying you said.
It's a prescribed reaction, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's understandable because... listen, we're doing a news podcast. It takes hours and hours and hours to research just a little bit of topics we're covering. It's a lot of effort to actually be informed on things.
Right.
So I bear no ill will against people who kind of just hear a soundbite, take a snippet, and say, okay, I think that's what's going on. But if that's how you get your news is in a very shallow way, you have to be open to the possibility you're wrong.
And just having a damn conversation.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm probably going to get canceled for that.
It's a conversation.
Yeah,
that's what we're pushing for. Is, you know, again, it's think for yourself, find the facts. Don't just hear one thing and roll with it. I mean, you gotta understand the story from different sides too. That's
it too. Like, there's always different sides, and you know, for the record, I go back and forth on this almost every day. Like, almost every day, I'm like, sympathy for Palestine, sympathy for Jews, sympathy for because. That's the worst part about this conflict, and it's all, you know, this is where my conspiracy brain goes, that it's just another way to divide and conquer people, because it has leaked so inexorably into American culture and life. Like, every day I'm seeing a video either of, like people attacking Jews randomly just for being Jews, or like I saw this video a couple weeks ago of a former Obama administration official accosting a halal guy.
A food truck
You
guy.
saw that video?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. And like just so like
He came back a couple times.
different outfits.
Yeah.
Like every day he was like, "Oh, so you want your daughter to be raped by the Muslims?"
Right.
And the guy was like, "I'm literally just trying to like sell food.
Just trying
Like,
to make
can
a
you
living here, guys."
please leave me alone?"
Tonight, a former State Department official is charged with a hate crime in New York after he was caught on video unleashing an Islamophobic rant against a food cart vendor. As CBS's Roxana Saberi reports, this incident is part of a wave of hate crimes stemming from the war between Israel and Hamas.
The NYPD charged Stuart Seldowitz with crimes including aggravated harassment and a hate crime. Mohammed Hussein recorded Seldowitz several times on different days outside his halal food cart and says he made anti-Islamic statements.
But you're a terrorist. You support terrorism.
Seldowitz had been a career State Department official and also worked for the Obama administration as acting director for South Asia at the National Security Council.
And we're going to put big signs here that say this guy believes in Hamas. We killed 4,000 Palestinian kids. You know what? It wasn't enough.
Seldowitz told the New York Times the videos don't tell the whole story, claiming Hussein told him he supported Hamas, which Hussein denies.
So like, those are the real monsters and villains, the people who are like making this conflict the problem of just everyday people trying to get by.
Right.
And that happens on both sides. There are people who support Palestine who are like actually anti-Semitic, and then there are people who are taking the popular support for Israel and weaponizing it against Muslims and Palestinians. It is very interesting to me to see how it's become the story every day. Like, we didn't cover anything Israel last week intentionally because I wanted to be somewhat more like specifically informed. I have a general like awareness of all this stuff, but like I wanted to dive deep into it a little bit. And there's a ton of people. I think if anyone is looking to get informed of this conflict a little bit more, there is a guy by the name of Dave Smith. He's a comedian, but he's also like a political commentator. He's a big podcast called Part of the Problem.
I still have to check that out. I haven't checked it out yet.
I think you would like him. He's a libertarian.
Okay.
But he's Jewish, and he's against, sort of state power and the military industrial monster that Israel has become.
All right.
And he traces the conflict back to like pretty much the origins, at least the post-World War II origins of when Palestine was British mandated Palestine and then given back to the Israelis. Because I see this, I've seen this infographic posted on Instagram a lot, and it's like the number of Jews in like 13 different Arab countries.
Yeah.
Before and after 1946 or whatever it was.
Right.
And it was like, well, 100,000 0, 100,000 0. It's like, yeah, they all left voluntarily.
Right.
They went to Israel. They didn't all get, and like that's my thing with a lot of this stuff is the hysteria. Is like, you don't have to manufacture hysteria for Israel. Like, we have, is it never forget or never again for the Holocaust? Although, even to be fair to that, I did read a report that apparently 20% of millennials and Gen Z either don't know about the Holocaust or don't believe it happened.
No comment on that.
That's why I'm so conflicted. Is like I'm obviously somebody who's like, I like to go against the grain, be like sort of heterodox, and be like, this is what you're not seeing. This is alternative media. This is an independent podcast. Don't come here to hear what you could hear on CNN or Fox.
Right.
So like I obviously have a perspective that is not pro-Israel. Let's just say that. That being said, I understand where it's coming from, because it does seem like every time something bad happens, people are like, the fucking Jews, obviously.
Right.
So, and 20% of kids don't believe the Holocaust. I get why my Jewish friends get like scared and are like, oh my God, here we go again.
I mean, then I don't know what the number is, but there's still people that like, I mean, it was probably my early adult life. I found out that people actually don't believe, some people don't believe the Holocaust even happened.
They're like counting the smokestacks.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah. The earth is flat too.
Oh my God. Those are, people who believe one almost always believe the other.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
I follow a couple of those guys on Instagram just to see like what they're putting out there, and it's pretty wild. Those people are certainly interesting.
They are something else, that's for sure.
As somebody who like prides myself on being like a critical thinker,
right,
and independent, like that's a bridge too far for me.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how theories like that they can last. You know what I mean? But
You literally, flat Earth is the funniest one. You
yeah.
just get in a plane.
Yeah.
They're like, no, there's no curvature. I'm like, I could see it.
There's that video. I mean, it's been, I think Joe Rogan spoke about it a couple times, like the flat earther that's just caught on video, like completely destroying his theory of flat Earth. Like
I have not seen that.
He's like out in the desert or something like that, and he's got a camera however many yards away, and then a focal point. Like, I don't know what the distance is in between, but he's like, okay, so Earth is flat, and if it was actually a sphere, then I would not be able to see the focal point in this picture because it would follow the sphere, the curvature of the Earth.
And then what? He can't see it?
He couldn't fucking find it. And he's like, and then the video ends, I believe.
That's
but
awesome.
Like, he's like, no, it's flat, so we're gonna see the focal point, and then you could see like maybe just the top, or he couldn't find it at all. And it's like, oh,
Cell
shit.
phone.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
stories full of holes.